The GDPR. It's coming. 41 days. My name is Michael Ritchey, and some of you may have seen my extensions before. I got some decently popular extensions out there. One of them, which is what brought me to look into the GDPR, is a really popular extension I wrote called the EU e-privacy directive, which is presently and has been for the past 6 years the number one cookie control extension in the Joomla extension directory. I believe that the reason it's the most popular, I've had people tell me this, I believe it's the most popular because it is the only one that conforms with the letter of the law, which states that you must accept cookies before they can be placed on your computer. Some bureaucrats said that they wouldn't enforce for necessary cookies. You could place them and use the implied consent, which is actually widely misunderstood what implied consent is. I did a big test against all of my other competing softwares in the extension directory, all except two, which, well, there were several which are just not available, and two which have no demos available and no code to look at. I ran a test against all of them, and every single one of them uses the information only model. Now, there are 5 models of consent as far as cookies go, and my ePrivacy extension uses the explicit consent model. And that is the closest to the GDPR requirements as any of them. I mean, mine's the only one that actually conforms to the EU privacy letter of the law, but GDPR is much more strict, which made it actually quite easy for me to adapt EU privacy to be also GDPR compliant. And in the process of reading up on the GDPR and the new regulations that are in place, I've came up with several other extensions that would help get you closer to full GDPR compliance. Now, I can't write code to solve some of the GDPR issues, but the ones that I can, I have, and I have some others in mind that I may be able to implement in the near future. So let's talk GDPR just for a minute. I'm not going to go in depth in this video. This is just a kind of a short introduction to who I am and what my motivations are. So let's talk GDPR and my approach to compliance. So, as you know, the GDPR is going to be going into effect here within 40-something days. I've got it up on one of my screens here. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for this video. It matters for you, which is why I've spent so much time in implementing and creating solutions for the things, like I said, the things that I can solve. It's because nobody seems to be paying any attention to this looming deadline. There was a request made in GitHub for the Joomla developers to include some GDPR compliance code, and I participated in that, and there were people on all sides, people who were totally against it. I was, of course, pushing my solutions because, I have to make money, and I'm a software developer, and I developed code to solve these problems. But the conversation went in lots of directions. There was some name calling, and then it just stopped. January 25th, the last comment. Nobody wanted to talk about it anymore. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's because they didn't want to do anything about it or because they thought the existing solutions would be fine, which they aren't. Um, there are a lot of pieces, a lot of moving pieces to GDPR that people are ignoring, and I I think 20 million euros penalty is a pretty good incentive to solve these problems. Um, I sell to people in the EU. I have a lot of customers in the EU, especially. I mean, one of my most popular softwares is the EU Privacy Directive, which is free, but uh, the other three GDPR compliance extensions that I have are not. I sell them in a bundle, but primarily all the people who have bought it live in EU member states. Um, it seems to be something that's not catching on in the US, or um, maybe these people don't think that they're ever going to get caught up in compliance check. So I don't know. Personally, I don't like having anything to do with any kind of legal proceeding that just makes the lawyers rich. So um, let me explain my motivations here. Number one, uh, I host my own websites. I do business with customers in the EU. I'm in Texas in the United States. Um, so the EU Privacy Directive didn't actually apply to me, but when I saw all of the other poor attempts to solve it, I decided that it needed to be written correctly. So I wrote it correctly, and like I said earlier, it jumped up to the number one uh, cookie extension in the extension directory. Um, let's look and make sure it's still there. I don't want to lie to you here. The privacy directive, and where's it at? Cannot review your own extensions yet. Yeah, I know. Yeah, still number one. Love it. So I felt it necessary to write an extension that fully complied with the letter of the law. I have some experience uh, in providing data for litigation. I spent a couple of years doing computer forensics for litigation, and it's they look at every single aspect. They want to know every single piece of every tiny moving component for every piece of data that is retrieved. So I have this distrust for lawyers, in that just because you have one bureaucrat saying they're not going to enforce this one part of the law, the bureaucrat didn't write the law. The bureaucrat is saying that they're not going to enforce a certain part of the law, but that doesn't mean the next set of bureaucrats will behave the same way. And that doesn't mean that if you get into court, you might not have opposing counsel deciding to enforce the letter of the law. So it's one of those things that I thought, someone needs to actually write some code that is protective for these site owners that are using this. And like I said, I have several customers in the EU. Many of them use EU Privacy Directive. So my first motivation is to stay out of court. I don't want to be in court. I don't want my customers to go to court. I don't want to be called as a witness regarding software implementation. I don't want any of that. So when I write this code, I'm writing it for maximum compliance with the law. Now, each of the extensions that I've written to what do I call each of these extensions that I've written to to support this GDPR compliance. They are for sale on my site. If you buy them individually, it's 20% more than the bundle price, and I want to make it affordable. I'm not really jacking the prices up here. You have a limited amount of time, and there are a lot of websites that are going to be subject to audits, and without some kind of protection in place, you may be facing a big fine, which I don't want anybody to be fined. I don't think governments need to come up with new ways to make money. They take enough on their own without fleecing us in other ways or coming up with new methods to take our money. So if you're watching this on my site, you're not going to be watching this on RicheyWeb. You're going to be watching this on it's not showing up. That's no fun. Which video am I looking at here? Oh, no wonder. There it is. Sorry about that. Had the wrong capture window. You're not going to be watching this on RicheyWeb. You're going to be watching this on either YouTube or this website that I'm building specifically for GDPR compliance, and the software that I'm providing, and the implementation and installation for this software. For the pieces that I can protect you against, I want to have a good explanation and instruction available for people to implement this. I'm going to be available. I'm going to make myself available for implementation for those of you who are not comfortable performing these kinds of tasks on your site. I'm going to make myself available to do these, but I only have so much time, and there are going to be a lot of sites that will need it. And like I said, here we go. 41 days, 5 hours, 42 minutes, and 34 seconds to go before compliance is required. So I have this sinking feeling that at the end of that time period, there's going to be a lot of scrambling. So I'm putting this website together with all the resources that I have available to you, and trying to make this as easy a transition as possible, with this site also acting as an implementation example. I am turning on this site the ability for users to register so you can experience what consent looks like. You can experience what I'll be doing in the next week or so. I'm going to implement a system automation that adds an additional consent requirement every, I don't know, third day or something. Maybe there's new consent will be added every evening at midnight or something. I'm not sure how that looks yet. I'm still building the site. I just had the idea to build this up for specific Joomla implementation of GDPR compliant software just a couple nights ago, and I'm almost ready. I need to finish writing up the implementation guides and get them in place, and then I'll do the automation so that you can experience what a new consent requirement looks like, and how it's implemented. I'll be doing there's going to be a lot of videos involved in this. I'm going to try to do as step-by-step as I can. I'm going to try not to be super technical on this. But yeah, I mean, I even have another piece I'm going to be giving away for free. I'm calling it the YouTube cookie free. Some of you may be watching this and saying, "Hi, he's got a YouTube video on there. There's definitely cookies." No, there is a way to implement YouTube videos without cookies, and I've built a plugin to make it work like all videos embed. But it only works for YouTube. It's a super simple plugin. It only has like one option. It is responsive, which is super cool. Anyway, let me go ahead and wrap this up. If you have any questions or any concerns regarding GDPR implementation, I'd love to hear them. If you have any ideas about the pieces that I have not covered, which actually I may as well jump into this real quick. There's a lot of pieces to GDPR. The green checkboxes, those are the pieces that I can affect compliance with. So that's consent, both for cookies and for terms, and then right to access, but only partly. I can only partially respond to that requirement. So, there's a lot of different pieces here that can be addressed, and some of them can't, like breach notification. Joomla has plenty of software available for security, but you don't necessarily want the security notifying the users directly, because you don't want a false positive to get sent out to thousands of users to say that there was a breach when it was really just a glitch and nothing was stolen. Right to be forgotten. That one I actually have an idea about how to do that between right to be forgotten and data portability. I have an idea about how to do it, but I need to experiment with that a little bit. And then privacy by design and data protection officers. Privacy by design is really kind of covered by Joomla on its own, but with third-party extensions, it's also kind of not. And then data protection officers. This is actual people. It wants the depending on where you are within the EU and the size of your company, you may or may not be required to have a data protection officer, a person responsible for this. So there's a lot of pieces to this, and a lot of different ways that it can be. I'm not sure if interpreted is the right way to describe it. I don't like to interpret laws. I like to look at them as objects that are carved in stone. It's when you interpret something that you risk interpreting it wrong, which is when you can get into some real trouble. If you don't interpret the law in the way that the lawmakers intended, or in the way that the legal counsel is attempting to hold you to, then you open yourself up to some heartache. So I'm going to go ahead and let this video end. Take a look around on GDPR.RicheyWeb.com, and if you get to a page that's blank, like many of them, I've just got placeholders in place, knowing that I have a lot of work to do. If you get to a page that's blank, just come back in a couple days. I'm really trying to get this available. I want to have a resource that's available because no one else seems to be doing it for the Joomla community. I don't understand it. Some of the core developers look years ahead at standards and requirements that are coming in the future, but here we've got something that's 41 days away and no one seems to be paying it any attention. So I'm taking that one on myself. Thanks. Come back and check it out. Check out some of the resources, and I hope I can help you obtain compliance.